You walk into a room, not a word spoken, yet every head turns. Why? Because high-value women don't shout to be heard, they speak once, and the room listens. It's not what you say, darling, it's how you say it. Your voice is your brand, your tone is your throne, and your silence, that's pure power. Today I'm not here to teach you to talk more, I'm here to teach you how to speak less, but rule more. Ready? Imagine a woman who walks like she owns the air. Not loud, not passive, just deliberate. That's a high-value woman. And when she speaks, you remember it. Because her words are measured like poetry, sharp like truth, soft like velvet, mysterious, like a secret you're dying to uncover. A high-value woman doesn't need to dominate a room with volume. Her presence is the volume. Let me break it down. Because it's not about talking more, it's about talking right. She walks into the room, not in a rush, not seeking attention. But somehow, everyone turns. That's the magic of a woman who talks slowly, like she has nothing to prove. She doesn't speak to fill silence. She speaks to own it. You see, talking slowly isn't just a speaking style. It's a reflection of the inner empire you've built. It says, I am not desperate to be understood because I understand myself. It says, I do not need to race with your energy because I am at peace with mine. And peace, that is a power they'll never see coming. And here's the truth. When you talk slowly, you leave room for gravity. Your words carry weight. Every pause is a statement. Every silence is a punctuation. It makes people feel like they're not just listening to your voice, they're witnessing something meaningful. Do you know who talks fast? The insecure, the uncertain, the ones trying to outrun judgment. Do you know who talks slow? The women who have already accepted themselves. Watch a classy woman order coffee. She doesn't rush. She doesn't repeat herself 3 times to feel heard. She says it once, politely, and with presence. She waits, not impatiently, but intentionally. Because even her smallest moment reflects her standards. And it's not just what you say, it's what you don't say. When someone insults her, she doesn't snap back with 20 defensive comebacks. She might tilt her head slightly, smile faintly, and say, noted. That's it, 1 word. But said slowly, it's more powerful than a paragraph. There was a girl in college. Everyone underestimated her. She didn't speak much in group projects, and when she did, it was soft, slow, and concise. People thought she wasn't smart. Until presentation day, she walked to the front, took her time setting up, looked the panel in the eye, and delivered a slow, steady, stunning presentation. No fluff, no filler, just facts, vision, and calm energy. The whole class, speechless. You want to be that woman. Because every time you talk slowly, you're telling the world, I am not in a hurry to prove who I am. I've already proven it to myself. It's how queens talk. Deliberate, thoughtful, unapologetic, not chasing moments, creating them. In a job interview, they'll remember your slow, steady response more than the person who answered every question in rapid fire. In friendships, they'll respect your ability to pause, reflect, and respond rather than react. In love, he'll feel your words because they arrive not in haste, but with heartbeat. And listen. When you're not rushing to speak, you start noticing. You become a better listener. You read between the lines. You hear what's not being said. You gain emotional intelligence. You become the woman who sees more, hears deeper, and speaks with rare clarity. Even on social media, when you post a voice note, a reel, or a story, your slow voice will feel more grounded, more real. While others scream to be noticed, you'll whisper to be remembered. And the world, it listens differently when a woman speaks like she already knows her work. So, yes, talk slowly, like your words are expensive, like your energy is sacred, like every sentence is a signature. And let them wonder how a woman so calm can carry a storm inside her, yet never need to unleash it just to prove she can. There's something dangerously attractive about a woman who can make you laugh and make you think in the same sentence. That's not a coincidence. That's not charm. That's mastery. When a high-value woman mixes wit with wisdom, she doesn't just speak, she casts a spell. She's the kind of woman who can silence a room with a quote and then make you laugh seconds later with a line that hits just as hard. She doesn't have to choose between brains or humor. She is the balance. And that balance, that's where her power lives. Because wit without wisdom is shallow. Wisdom without wit is heavy. But combine the two, you get elegance with edge, lightness with depth. And that's what makes her unforgettable. Imagine this. A man at a dinner party tries to flirt with her in that predictable way. He says, "So, are you always this intimidating?" Most women would either get defensive or flattered. Boom, one sentence. She put him in his place, made the table laugh, and didn't lose her grace. That's what mixing wit with wisdom looks like. Every word is velvet with a hidden blade. She's not loud, she's sharp. She doesn't speak to impress, she speaks to express. With style, sparkle, and strength. There's a woman I once met at a business conference. While most speakers gave data and numbers like robots, she walked onto the stage and said, "I came here to give you numbers, but I also came here to wake you up because your bank account isn't the only thing overdrafted. Your confidence is too." People laughed. Then they listened because her humor wasn't fluff. It carried truth. She had them laughing one minute, reflecting the next. That's power. In daily life, you see it too. She's the friend who doesn't preach, but somehow always drops a quote that sticks in your mind like glue. She'll say, "You're not confused, babe. You're just ignoring your own clarity." And then wink, like it's no big deal. But it is, because that one line hits deeper than 1,000 advice columns. That's her style. She disarms you with humor, then delivers the truth while you're still smiling. You know what's rare? A woman who can be the smartest in the room without ever making you feel small. Who can make you laugh while raising your standards. That's the kind of woman people fall for. That's the kind of woman people follow. When she's in an argument, she doesn't scream to win. She makes one statement, funny but factual, that turns the heat down and the awareness up. Like when someone tries to gaslight her and she says, "Oh, sweetheart, I may forget my keys, but I never forget reality." Then she walks away, calm, confident, unshaken. It's not just about sarcasm. It's about timing, tone, tact. Her words don't stab. They sting with class. Because she's not petty. She's poetic with her power. Even in romantic relationships, It's this blend of humor and depth that sets her apart. When a man says, "You're different," she doesn't say thank you. She smirks and says, "I know. Regular's out of stock." And she says it not to show off, but because she means it. It's not arrogance, it's self-awareness, served with a side of sass. Mixing wit with wisdom isn't about rehearsed comebacks. It's about knowing who you are so deeply that your humor naturally carries weight. You're not trying to be funny, you are funny. Because you've lived, you've felt, and you've risen. And that experience adds layers to your language. One woman I knew worked in tech, male-dominated space, competitive energy, sharp minds. She told me the only way she thrived wasn't by being the loudest or the coldest. It was by blending her brilliance with bold humor. She'd say things like, "I'm not trying to break the glass ceiling. I'm just surprised it's still there." Men respected her. Women admired her because she made people think while making them laugh. That's rare currency. When you speak with wit and wisdom, people can't put you in a box. You're not just the funny one. You're not just the smart one. You're both. You're unpredictable. World addicted to extremes. You are the middle ground they crave. And let's be honest, there's something healing about that mix. Life is heavy. People are tired. A woman who can drop a truth bomb and still lighten the room, that's therapy without a couch. That's leadership without a title. She's the woman who, when someone says, "Life's hard," responds with, "So is life hard." But the view's worth it. And suddenly the whole energy shifts. Because she doesn't deny pain, she dances with it. Even online, her captions aren't basic. She'll write something like, "Smile like a mystery, talk like a memory, and walk like you've already arrived." One sentence. And people save it, share it, screenshot it. Because it's not just cute, it's coded with power. She knows words are weapons, but also art. And every time she speaks, it's a masterpiece of humor and honesty. So if you want to be unforgettable, don't just drop knowledge, deliver it in a way that wraps people up, makes them laugh, makes them feel seen, makes them remember you even days later. That's the mark of a woman who doesn't just talk. She shifts atmospheres. A high-value woman doesn't always scream in declarations. She speaks in questions. Not because she doesn't know the answer, but because she knows power doesn't scream, it invites. She doesn't walk into a room with "I'm right" energy. She walks in with "Have you thought about this" energy. And that right there changes everything. Why? Because questions create reflection. Reflection creates awareness. And awareness, that's where transformation begins. You ever notice how some people try to dominate a conversation by having the loudest voice or the most facts? But then she walks in, doesn't raise her tone, just smiles and says, "But what if you're looking at it from the wrong angle?" And suddenly, the noise dies. People pause. Why? Because that one question unlocked a door no one noticed. She didn't need to argue. She made them think. That's grace with gravity. A woman who speaks in questions isn't unsure, she's strategic. She's not interested in impressing you. She's interested in awakening you. She knows that telling someone what to think only feeds their ego. But asking the right question, that feeds their soul. Like when her friend is about to text an ex at 2 a.m., crying, broken, drunk on memories. Most would say, don't do it. He's not worth it. But she leans in, takes her hand and whispers, if he really loved you, would you be here crying alone tonight? That question doesn't just stop the text. It opens a truth. It creates space for healing. Because when you give people the answer, they might reject it. But when you ask the right question, they discover the truth on their own. And that's where real power lives. You see, speaking in questions is not about manipulation. It's about mastery. You're not directing people. You're guiding them inward. There was a woman in a leadership meeting, surrounded by male executives, who kept debating about what the company should do. Everyone tossing strategies, stats, and ego on the table. She sat quietly for 20 minutes. The room changed just like that. No one had even asked that. It's the same in relationships. When a man brags about how every girl chases him, she doesn't get jealous. No one can brag about how every girl chases him. She doesn't get jealous. It's the same in relationships. No one can brag about how every girl chases him. Allah smiles and says, and who do you chase? That one question flips the ego. Because she's not intimidated, she's intrigued by authenticity, not attention. Speaking in questions is how you stay mysterious without being vague. It's how you maintain your elegance without losing your edge. At a dinner, someone once asked her, why are you still single? Expecting her to defend herself. She leaned back and replied, why does everyone assume being alone means something's missing? Boom. Suddenly, she wasn't the one on trial, they were. She didn't explain her worth, she made them reconsider their assumptions. That's the difference. In friendships too, when someone says, I feel lost, she doesn't immediately try to fix them. She says, what if you're not lost? What if you're just transitioning into a new version of yourself? That simple reframe in question form offers light instead of a lecture. Even in small moments, like at a coffee shop when the barista messes up her order, she doesn't scold, she smiles and asks, rough morning? That one question shifts the energy. It doesn't just get her a corrected drink. It gives the other person grace. And people never forget grace. Especially when it's delivered in a world full of blame. The truth is, a high-value woman doesn't force her voice into every corner. She chooses her words like an artist. Each one placed with intention. And when she asks questions, it's not to create doubt, it's to awaken depth. She knows people don't always remember what you told them, but they always remember what they realized through you. Like the girl who was scared to apply for her dream job because she wasn't qualified. Most would have said, you should go for it. But she asked, and who told you that you're not allowed to grow into the role? That sentence, disguised as a question, shook her friend's beliefs more than a motivational speech ever could. She doesn't speak to show off. She speaks to stir something in you. Even online, her captions aren't just quotes. They're questions that challenge you in the softest way. Like, what if your biggest fear is actually your next breakthrough in disguise? Or why are you trying so hard to be liked by people who don't even like themselves? And suddenly, you're not scrolling anymore. You're sitting with it. You're thinking about your life, your patterns, your choices. That's how deeply her words hit. Without volume, without force, just precision. Because she knows real impact doesn't come from having the last word, it comes from asking the right first one. A woman like that doesn't need to win debates, she wins respect. She doesn't dominate the room, she shifts it. Not with answers that end the conversation, but with questions that begin the transformation. ChatGPT said, a high-value woman never explains too much. She knows that when you over-explain, you're not clarifying, you're justifying. And she doesn't live in the energy of justification. She lives in alignment, certainty, and calm inner knowing. You don't see her defending her every move, every choice, every silence, because she understands something powerful. The more you explain, the more you invite misunderstanding. The more you try to convince, the more you suggest there's something wrong with your truth. There's a woman who chooses not to attend every party, every dinner, every group event. And when asked, why weren't you there? You missed out. She doesn't launch into a 10-minute monologue about how tired she was or how busy work has been. She simply smiles and says, I needed the time. That's it. No defense, no apology. Because she honors her needs without needing permission from anyone to have them. That's where her power lies, in her restraint. People often confuse being loud with being strong. But strength isn't always noisy. Sometimes strength sounds like silence. Sometimes it looks like saying less and meaning more. Like when someone asks her why she ended a relationship, she doesn't dive into a list of his mistakes. She doesn't try to paint herself as the victim. She just says, it wasn't aligned with who I'm becoming. That's a sentence that says everything and still keeps her mystery intact. Because here's the thing, the more you say, the more people dissect. The less you say, the more people wonder. And in a world obsessed with oversharing, a woman who knows what to keep to herself becomes rare. And rare is valuable. You know when you're at work and a colleague tries to corner you in gossip? Why didn't you support that project? Most people would spiral into justifying every step. Well, I tried to help, but they didn't listen, and I was busy with another task, and she just says, it didn't fit my focus at the time. Period. Let them assume. Let them guess. Because a woman like that doesn't manage other people's narratives. She manages her peace. There's a moment we've all faced when someone questions your lifestyle. Maybe you're single. Maybe you chose not to have kids. Maybe you left a secure job to chase a wild dream. And people say, but why would you do that? A high-value woman doesn't start pulling out emotional receipts or convincing stories. She tilts her head and replies, because I trust myself. And just like that, she shifts from being questioned to being respected. She knows that explanation is a form of chasing, and chasing in any form breaks your energetic posture. You don't need to over-explain where you were, why you didn't respond, or how you feel. Your time, your energy, your boundaries, they're not court cases. They're declarations of self-worth. No need for closing arguments. Remember the woman who was criticized for wearing what she wanted? Bold lipstick, fierce heels, showing up fully in her own vibe. Aren't you worried people will think you're too much? They asked. She just laughed and said, let them. That's it. No explaining her fashion, her fire, or her femininity. Because she wasn't performing for acceptance. She was expressing from truth. Even in love, she plays different. When a man pulls away, she doesn't send a novel trying to keep him. She doesn't text, "What did I do wrong?" She simply goes silent. And when he comes back saying, "You didn't even ask why I left," she looks at him and says, "If you wanted me to know, you would have told me." That's not cold, that's clarity. And clarity is what makes her unforgettable. You see, high value isn't about arrogance. It's about discernment. It's knowing what to say, when to say it, and what to leave out entirely. Because not everything deserves an explanation. Not everyone has earned access to your why. In a world where people post every moment, every thought, every move, a woman who withholds becomes art. Her mystery becomes a magnet. Her silence becomes a statement. And her presence, it speaks louder than any paragraph could. There's a woman at work who gets promoted, and everyone's whispering, "She must have had connections. She probably kiss up to the boss." She hears it. But she doesn't address the rumors. Doesn't post a long caption defending her grind. She just walks into her new office, shuts the door, and starts building. Because she knows silence can't be twisted. When someone asks why she no longer talks to a friend she used to be close with, she doesn't spill every betrayal, every private detail. She just says, "We grew in different directions." She protects her peace and their privacy. Because growth doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be real. This is why she's magnetic. Because she gives just enough to be clear, but never so much that she is predictable. She keeps her life sacred. She keeps her soul sovereign. She lets people feel her strength, not just hear it. And that's the kind of presence that leaves people stunned. Not because you told them everything, but because you told them just enough to let them know you don't need to prove anything. You are the proof. A high-value woman knows the most powerful sentences are often delivered without a single word. She understands that true influence doesn't always live in her lips. It lives in her eyes. Because when you look someone in the eye, fully, unapologetically, without looking away, it says, "I am here. I'm not afraid. I know who I am." And there's no filler word in the world that can compete with that kind of presence. Most people fill silence with like, or nervous laughs, because they're scared of the pause, scared of the space between thoughts. But a woman of value, she's not afraid of that silence. She owns it. She lets the pause do the talking. She doesn't fill space to be heard. She allows her stillness to echo louder than noise. Imagine her in a boardroom. The room's filled with sharp voices, egos bouncing off walls, everyone trying to sound smarter than the next. And then she speaks. Slowly, clearly. She finishes her sentence and just looks up, makes eye contact with the decision maker, and holds it. No rambling, no backtracking, just a gaze that says, "Did you hear me? Good." Let it land, and the room goes quiet. Not because she raised her voice, not because she made her voice, but because she raised the energy. Even in relationships, her eye contact speaks volumes. When a man asks, "Are you upset with me?" she doesn't launch into emotional chaos. She doesn't start with, "It's not a big deal, but," or "I don't want to sound dramatic, but." She simply looks him in the eye and says, "What do you think?" And she lets the silence wrap around her gaze. That kind of calm intensity forces him to reflect, not defend. Because the eyes don't lie, they don't stutter, they don't apologize for truth. You've seen her at a dinner table. Someone tries to interrupt her mid-sentence. Instead of raising her voice, she pauses, shifts her eyes directly to the interrupter and waits. Her expression says it all. I wasn't finished. And that simple look reclaims the space. No fillers, no begging, just presence. Presence is her secret weapon. Because people may forget your exact words, but they never forget how your eyes made them feel, seen, exposed, captivated, or challenged. Even in an argument, she doesn't raise her pitch. She lowers her pace. Looks you dead in the eye and says, I'm not here to fight. I'm here to be understood. That's disarming. That's powerful. That's what leaves people speechless long after the conversation ends. And when she's on stage giving a talk or just expressing her truth in a crowded room, she doesn't rely on scripted lines or rehearsed transitions. She scans the room with her eyes. She connects with the souls in front of her, not the script. Because when she locks eyes with someone, she's not performing. She's inviting them into her world, and they want to follow. There's a woman who once got asked, why don't you say more in meetings? She smiled, locked eyes with her manager, and said, because when I speak, I want it to count. That one sentence, delivered with poise and direct eye contact, was worth more than all the filler in the world. A high-value woman knows the weight of her energy, and her gaze is like gold. It's rare, valuable, and you feel richer when it's directed at you. She chooses when to speak, but more importantly, she chooses how to look. Because anyone can talk, but only the confident can make you feel their truth without drowning you in words. There's a kind of silence that isn't empty. It's powerful. A high-value woman knows how to master that silence like it's a secret weapon. Because silence is not weakness. Silence is not submission. Silence, when used with intention, is strength in its purest, most mysterious form. It says, I could say something right now, but I choose not to. And that choice, that's my power. Think about a heated argument. The other person is yelling, throwing words like knives, hoping for a reaction. But she doesn't scream back. She doesn't play the same game. She stands still, calm, watching, listening. And in that moment, her silence screams louder than their rage. Her presence says, you don't have the power to pull me out of my peace. That silence becomes her shield and her statement. At work, when others are jumping to speak first just to be seen or heard, she waits. She lets the noise pass. She observes. She doesn't need to compete with chaos because she studies it. Then, when the moment is right, when her words will have maximum impact, she speaks. One sentence. That's all it takes. And everyone listens, not because she forced them to, but because her silence made them curious. Even in relationships, this silence speaks volumes. Say a man disappears, comes back expecting things to pick up where they left off. She doesn't give him the satisfaction of a breakdown or a dramatic explanation. She doesn't ask, why did you leave? She doesn't beg. She doesn't vent. She simply goes quiet. Her silence becomes a mirror he's forced to look into. And nothing haunts a man more than a woman who refuses to explain her worth. There's a story about a woman who was betrayed by someone she trusted. People asked her, why did you expose him? She smiled and said, I don't need to ruin his reputation. Time will reveal what I already know. That's the art of silence. Not revenge, not exposure, just patience wrapped in self-respect. Someone tries to insult her, throw jabs masked in sarcasm. Instead of retaliating with more words, she simply locks eyes, tilts her head slightly, and says nothing. That silence is louder than any comeback, because it whispers, "You're not even worth my breath." That silence disarms. That silence humbles. Even when she's asked direct questions that feel invasive or unnecessary, she smiles and says, "Why do you ask?" And then she waits. Silence. That pause forces the other person to confront their own intention. It shifts the power. She knows silence is sacred. It's where intuition lives. It's where observation sharpens. It's where chaos clears. A high-value woman doesn't just use silence as a break between words. She uses it as a message, as protection, as power. Because the most powerful people in the room are never the loudest. They're the ones who speak only when it's worth breaking their silence. She doesn't walk into a room to be liked, she walks in to be remembered. A high-value woman knows that her words, her silence, her gaze, and her energy are not random habits. They are her weapons of elegance. She doesn't just speak, she casts spells. And every sentence, every pause, every look carries one message. I know who I am. And I don't need you to confirm it. You see, the world often teaches women to shrink, to soften, to explain, to apologize for simply existing in power. But a woman of high value, she's the storm that never announces itself. She doesn't beg to be understood. She doesn't chase after clarity. She becomes the clarity. In a room full of noise, she is the calm that demands attention. When others fumble over words to prove something, she speaks with poise. And sometimes, she doesn't speak at all. Because when you know your worth, your energy enters before you do, and your silence lingers long after you've gone. She knows what most people forget. Your voice doesn't gain power by being louder. It gains power by being aligned. And when you align your words with who you truly are, when your confidence isn't loud but rooted, everybody listens. Even your silence becomes unforgettable. She's the type of woman who won't tell you her value. She'll show you. Engage. When you engage, it'll be your nightlight. She's the type of woman who won't tell you her value. She'll show you. You can become the most important thought in the room every day. So you just got to know what to do. She's the count. She's the ceiling. She's the floor. In how she walks. In how she listens. In how she never explains too much. In how she speaks in questions that make you reflect, not defend. In how she blends wit with wisdom so gracefully that even her sarcasm sounds like philosophy. She doesn't just drop quotes. She becomes one. Don't chase people. Be yourself. Do your own thing and work hard. The right people, the ones who really belong in your life, will come to you and they'll stay. That's not just a caption, that's her lifestyle. She lives by this. Speak your mind, even if your voice shakes, but know when to stay quiet, because silence can't be misquoted. That's a woman who owns her voice and her voids. When someone tries to test her boundaries, she doesn't scream. She just withholds access. When someone plays games, she doesn't react. She just exits gracefully. And when someone finally realizes her worth, it's often too late because she's already gone. Not bitter, just better. Let's be honest. Anyone can speak, but not everyone can make people feel. That's the real power. It's not in how fast you talk or how many words you throw out. It's in how deeply you make people think. A high-value woman doesn't just talk to be heard. She talks to be remembered. And she knows that sometimes her most powerful moments will come in the form of a smile, a stare, a pause, or a well-placed no. She doesn't perform confidence, she breathes it. She's not loud because she's unsure. She's calm because she's certain. And that calmness, that self-assured elegance, it's magnetic. You can't fake it. You can't imitate it. You feel it. So if you're listening to this thinking, how do I become her? Remember, you already are her. You don't have to build a persona. You have to strip everything away that made you forget your own power. Stop over-explaining, stop proving, stop rushing, start owning, start observing, start aligning. Because at the end of the day, a high-value woman doesn't demand attention, she commands it. And when she speaks, the world listens, not because they have to, but because they can't help it. Remember this. Elegance is when the inside is as beautiful as the outside. Power is when silence speaks louder than screams. And royalty, that's when your presence makes people sit up straight, even before you say a word. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. You don't need validation. You just need to walk in like you own the place, because you've already built it in your soul.